There are moments in a person's life when the soul whispers, faintly yet unmistakably. It is not comfort it speaks of, but challenge, not ease but ordeal. It tells you, do what is hard, and why, because what is easy never transforms you. There is a part of you that you do not show the world, a hidden aspect, buried not because it is evil, but because it is inconvenient, misunderstood, or feared. These are not merely your weaknesses, they are also your untapped strength, exiled from your identity because they did not fit the image you believed you had to wear. You were told to be polite, so your anger went underground. You were told to be brave, so your fear became secret. You were praised when you were obedient, and so your wild, creative fire became a whisper. But what you bury does not die at waits. It gathers strength in the dark. And over time, what you reject within yourself becomes the very thing that haunts you from the corners of your life. You feel it in your irritations, your addictions, your self-sabotage. You call it bad luck, or coincidence, or say, I don't know why I keep doing this. But somewhere deep inside, you do know. To do what is hard means to stop running from these shadows and start speaking with them. Sit with the rage, confront the envy, feel the sorrow you've silenced. Let the part of you that has been chained in the basement of your psyche speak, not to wreak havoc, but to reclaim its place in your inner kingdom. This is not indulgence, this is integration. It is the sacred work of becoming whole. The treasure you seek in the world, confidence, clarity, direction, does not lie in the sunlight of your comfort zones. It lies in the cave you fear to enter, the one guarded by the very emotions and impulses you've been taught to avoid. But what if your fear was not the enemy? What if your jealousy had a message? What if your anxiety held a forgotten truth? By confronting what is hardest in yourself, you begin to unearth something rare, authentic power. Not the brittle armor of ego, but the deep, grounded presence of someone who knows their darkness and no longer fears it. The one who faces the monster within becomes unshakable without. They do not need to pretend. They do not need approval. They walk the world with a quiet strength born from honest struggle. This is why the path of growth is not found in avoiding difficulty, but in walking straight into it. To do what is hard is to choose discomfort over denial, to prefer truth over illusion. And in that fierce light of awareness, the shadow loses its teeth and becomes your teacher. So do not flee from what disturbs you within. Approach it, listen, learn its name, for what you have cast out is not your curse. It is the key. There is something inside you, an echo, faint but persistent, that knows you are meant for more than survival, more than comfort, more than going through the motions. It speaks not in words but in longings, in restlessness, in dreams you can't quite forget. And yet, every time you begin to move toward that deeper calling, something rises against you. You plan, you prepare, you take the first step, and then resistance appears. Not always in the form of obvious obstacles. Sometimes it comes as distraction, sometimes as fatigue, sometimes as the subtle whisper, who do you think you are? You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, you overthink, you wait for the right time. And without knowing how, days pass, years pass, and the path begins to grow over with weeds. This is not accidental. The moment you set out toward what truly matters, a wall emerges. An invisible wall made of your own fear, your own doubt, your old stories about who you are and what you're allowed to become. And yet, paradoxically, this resistance is not proof that you're on the wrong path. It's proof that you're finally approaching something real. The wall exists precisely because beyond it lies your transformation. And transformation demands everything false must die. Your masks, your excuses, your comforts. That is why it feels like a struggle, because part of you is still clinging to the old identity, afraid of what it means to fully commit to your potential. But your destiny is not given to you. It must be claimed. And it can only be claimed by the one who refuses to turn away when things become uncomfortable. The way forward is not to wait until fear disappears, but to walk forward with fear in your bones and courage in your chest. You do not need to feel ready. You need only to be willing. There will be no trumpet announcing your moment. No divine sign will part the sky and hand you your purpose in glowing letters. Instead, it will be a quiet decision made in solitude. A whisper of truth that says, I will no longer betray what I know in my soul. And from that moment forward, resistance becomes your signal, not to retreat, but to push harder, because on the other side of that wall is not perfection. It is not a life without struggle, but it is a life with meaning, a life that feels aligned, a life where each hardship faced adds weight to your character and depth to your presence. You begin to walk with integrity, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary to be whole. To do what is hard is to understand that your highest potential is not handed to you when you're ready. It is revealed when you are brave enough to keep going through everything that tells you to stop. Your resistance is the guardian of the door, but the key to that door has always been within you, your willingness to act, to fail, to grow. Keep going, not because it is easy, but because the person you are becoming is worth every step. There is a quiet truth often overlooked in a world obsessed with speed, shortcuts, and applause. Nothing of true value is created without discipline, not strength, not clarity, not peace. Discipline is not the harsh voice of punishment. It is the sacred rhythm of becoming. It is the fire that turns raw potential into living power. We are each born with fragments of greatness buried within us, seeds of vision, sparks of courage, but without structure they lie dormant, without challenge they fade. And without discipline they never take form. The self does not shape itself by accident. It is carved day by day by the choices you make when no one is watching. To do what is hard means waking up even when you'd rather sleep, showing up even when you feel small, honoring your word to yourself even when it's inconvenient. These acts are not glamorous. They rarely bring instant reward. But they build something infinitely more valuable, trust in your own soul. Every time you do what you said you would do, especially when it's difficult, a part of you stands taller. The noise in your mind quiets. The chaos within finds order. You begin to realize that freedom is not the absence of boundaries. It is the result of living with intention. A disciplined life is not a life of restriction, but one of alignment. You start to feel your inner world organize itself around a deeper axis, not driven by mood, not swayed by impulse, but guided by a silent compass that points toward your true north. Discipline is not perfection. You will falter, you will fall, but the one who is committed to a higher path rises again, not out of guilt, but out of reverence for what they are becoming. You stop chasing external validation, and instead begin living for something eternal within yourself. There will always be easier paths, softer roads, temporary pleasures dressed up as peace, but ease is a poor teacher, and pleasure without purpose is a slow form of erosion. True joy, the kind that leaves you fuller, not emptier, comes not from indulgence but from effort. From looking back at a day and knowing you met it fully, whether in triumph or in struggle, through discipline, you become an alchemist of your own being. You take the base elements of chaos, doubt, and fear, and transmute them into focus, grit, and grace. Your time becomes sacred, your energy becomes clear, you stop merely reacting to life, and begin creating it, and in this silent, relentless practice, a miracle occurs. You meet the version of yourself that you once believed was only a dream. Not by waiting, not by wishing, but by working, quietly, consistently, honestly, until the person you were always meant to be steps forward from the fire, forged and whole. There is a kind of suffering that shrinks the soul, and another kind that expands it. The first is the suffering we try to avoid, yet still find ourselves crushed beneath. The second is the suffering we choose, the struggle we willingly embrace in pursuit of something higher. It is this second kind that transforms us. It is this kind that gives life meaning. You are not meant to float through life untouched by difficulty. In fact, what nourishes your depth and sharpens your strength is not the absence of challenge, but your posture toward it. When you volunteer to bear a burden, when you take up responsibility not because you must, but because you can, that is when your life begins to open from the inside out. There is deep power in choosing the hard path when the easy one tempts you. In lifting a weight that is not yours to carry, but one you choose to carry. This is not martyrdom. This is not about suffering for the sake of it. It is about the sacred act of aligning yourself with a purpose so meaningful that you are willing to endure pain to uphold it. That kind of suffering sanctifies, it doesn't diminish you, it dignifies you. Comfort never asks anything of you, but neither does it give anything lasting. It lulls you, it wraps you in numbness and distracts you from your own unlived potential. It tells you you're fine as you are, when deep down, something in you knows you're not done becoming. Struggle, when it is chosen with awareness, is not your enemy. It is the sculptor of your soul. The deepest joy you will ever know will not come from things that were handed to you, but from the victories you earned, from the nights you didn't quit, from the tears you cried in silence and kept going anyway, from the long stretches of effort that no one saw, but that shaped you into someone solid, someone real. Meaning arises from walking through the storm with your eyes open and your heart intact. In the stories we admire, the hero is never the one who had it easy. They are the one who descended, who struggled, who fell and rose again. Why should your story be any different? To live with meaning is to be the one who says yes to the mountain, who enters the labyrinth, who carries the fire when the night is cold and long. It is to find a cause, a truth, a vision, something greater than yourself, and give yourself to it. The world will not always reward you for it. Sometimes it will not notice, but something deeper will awaken. You will become the kind of person who does not run from difficulty but walks into it, knowing that on the other side is not ease, but a more complete self. You will realize that fulfillment was never in the outcome, but in the willingness to strive for it. Voluntary struggle is the altar at which your future self is built. In choosing what is hard, you are not losing. You are offering something precious in exchange for something eternal, and that exchange, quiet and fierce, is where meaning is born. We have been told to rise, to ascend, to move upward toward the light, toward success, toward clarity. And yet, every great transformation begins not with ascent, but with descent. Not with soaring above the world, but with entering its depths. The hero is not the one who floats above suffering, but the one who willingly walks into the underworld. There will come a time in every life when the old ways no longer work, when the strategies that once brought you comfort fall silent, when the mask you've worn begins to crack, and the familiar path disappears into fog. In that moment, something ancient stirs, a quiet invitation from the soul. Go down, go in. There is something there you must face. The descent is never glamorous. It is not applauded, not rewarded. It is often mistaken for failure, depression, or defeat. To the outside world it may look like you're losing, but in truth this is the sacred stage of becoming, the cocoon before the wings, the soil before the seed breaks open. To descend is to surrender to the process of deep inner change, to allow everything superficial to fall away, so that what is essential can be revealed. You descend into the forgotten places within, into your grief, your rage, your loneliness, your longing. You meet the memories you buried. You hear the voices you silenced. You come face to face with the parts of you that never healed, never spoke, never stopped hurting. This is not weakness. This is courage in its rawest form. To stop running, to stop pretending, to feel it all. Many try to avoid this descent. They numb themselves with busyness, addiction, distractions that promise escape. But what is not faced in the depths will rule your life from the shadows. Only the one who dares to enter the darkness can reclaim what was lost there. Only the one who is willing to die metaphorically, who allows the false self to dissolve, can be reborn. It is in the depths that the hero finds their true strength, not the strength of control or domination, but the strength of knowing oneself completely. You return from the descent with something the surface world cannot give: depth, wisdom, presence. You become someone who has seen the dark and is no longer afraid of it, and that makes you unshakable. This is why the journey matters, not because it is easy, not because it ends in victory as the world defines it, but because it strips you of illusion, because it makes you real. Because through descent you touch something eternal within yourself, something no failure, no loss, no chaos can take from you. To be a hero is not to win, it is to descend, endure, and return with the truth. And when you do return changed, scarred, radiant with the wisdom of your own depths, you don't come back only for yourself. You become a light for others still wandering the dark. You become living proof that descent is not the end. It is the beginning of becoming whole. So I say again, do what is hard, not to impress, not to compete, but to become. Become the one your soul has always known you could be. The world doesn't need more cleverness. It needs more courage. It needs more people who choose the difficult path, not because it is hard, but because it is true.